I'm Chris, and this is MMA for You. I'm going to be doing my predictions for UFC 209 Woodley versus Thompson 2, which happens on March 4th. But before I get into that, I'd like to plug a couple things. First will be my author's website at www.chrismaldon.com. The other one is my storytelling podcast, Chris's Storytelling Corner, which you can find on YouTube, Stitcher, iTunes, or SoundCloud. I just started making lists for that as well. Various lists about like anything comic book related, anime related, or like manga, TV related. So check that out when you can. Links to those will be provided in the description. So on to this fight card. I like this fight card quite a bit. There's some UFC newcomers. I did manage to watch some video of all these guys. Daniel Spitz, Cynthia, Calvillo, and Andre Suma. I can't pronounce his last name. Soukhamthath is how I'm going to pronounce it. I did watch a video of all those guys, so I'm relatively familiar with pretty much everyone on the card. And this is a very good card and a very well matched card. There really isn't a fight here that, I can't speak with great confidence with. Like, oh, this is totally this guy's fight. It's like, nah, a lot of these are just, they really can go either way. Like, I don't really see a fight here that's like, I'm thinking, that the skill disparity is that much. Maybe Tybura, Henrique, and even then, Henrique's tough as nails. Yeah, all of these fights are very well matched, and it was really hard for me to finally pick a winner for a lot of these. I like most of the fights on here. Starting with the prelims, like you might not recognize the names. Albert Morales he's a good action fighter. Just say that. Yeah, he got knocked out by good old Tomas Almeida, but it's Tomas Almeida. You know, he's find another action fighter from like Zillions. A good women's fight. Amanda Bobby Cooper, solid. He's find Cynthia Calvillo. I don't know if we're pronouncing the last name right, but I saw some fights from her. She looks pretty good. Tyson Pedro and Paul Craig, light heavyweight prospects who are actually well-known finishers on the ground. So hey, that sounds fun to me. Luke Sanders is always a lot of fun. Big step up for Bektic. Got some heavyweight fights, which could go. Tough to say how those are going to go with Tybura versus Henrique. Spitz versus Godbeer. Wow. He spits Godbeer. Ha ha ha. And then actually it continues on to the main card with Overeem Hunt starting off the main card. Fun action fight with Teymur versus Lando, Vannata. Got a veteran in Rashad Evans. He's had some name there against Dan Kelly. And the main and co-main honestly could go either way. All these guys are very well skilled. Championship level fighters throughout. So, you know what? Let's just get started. Tyron Woodley fights Stephen Thompson for the welterweight title. So, skill-wise, we know that Woodley, his wrestling in the first round of when they fought, pretty much stifled Thompson. One problem with Woodley though is when he does utilize his wrestling, it's not a problem per se because he gets around, but he is a grinder. He hasn't really shown finishing ability with ground and pound. And early on in his career, like we've seen like him do arm triangles or whatnot. But he's not like a huge submission threat that he may have once have been. Like really early in his career, he just kind of like, gets on top, stays on top, and he's really strong. His weapon of choice, standing, His outside leg kick's good, but his weapon choice is the right hand. The overhand right has been money for him, and it nearly finished Thompson in the third or fourth round. I forgot which one it was. And then he went for a guillotine, and Thompson didn't tap. Otherwise, he's not a volume striker. Cardio is still, despite going to 5 rounds, I mean, he just didn't throw a lot, you know? That's the thing with Woodley. It's like he's conserving energy a lot of times, but that one shot he does throw can finish opponents, especially with the right hand. He really likes that overhand right. He really loads up that overhand right too. You can actually see the dude flex, like in slow mo pics. You see him start like flexing and then throwing that overhand right. Um, he's fighting Stephen Thompson, who's you know known for his like karate style. He has a hands down style. Um, and I even said this in the first prediction video, the first time they fought, in the prediction video there with Thompson. This guy is very susceptible to the overhand right. I mean, I remember Ellenberger dropped him. Um, and of course Woodley managed to drop him. It's very odd. Uh, as far as the skill goes, Thompson's kicks are really good. He throws the side kick really well. He's good at timing his strikes and going in and out. His takedown defense has greatly improved. His ability to get back to his feet when he's taken down has also improved as well. He will also go for spinning strikes too. He's also shown a level of resilience as well, especially when he fought Woodley. Even going so far back as when he fought Matt Brown. I mean, that guy was getting tagged hard and was at least still in the fight. So he's a pretty resilient guy as well. One thing that Woodley was saying, I guess, studying up on Thompson, was that I guess his team believed that Thompson is not good at being the leader. And that's why Woodley was backing up. Granted, Woodley always backs up against the cage. It is just the thing he does. And it's one of the biggest weaknesses of his style, depending on who he goes up against. Because when he fought like Rory McDonald, man, Rory McDonald just like body kick him all day. Um, and Woodley could not get anything on Rory. He looked really bad. I still feel it's still a problem. I don't know why I said still twice. I think it's still a problem for Woodley, though, to go back up in a straight line like that. Usually he'll go back, maybe wait for the counter, and then he'll throw like multiple right hands while rushing forward. I mean, if you actually watch the first fight, you can see him do that a lot. Um, Thompson's susceptibility to that right hand is very troublesome as well. However, I also have to wonder if Woodley is going to indeed wrestle more. He did find success in the first round of their fight, wrestling Thompson to the ground, maintaining top half guard, if I'm not mistaken, and just pretty much winning the round. So that is an option for him. Adjustments are very interesting, though, because I don't know how they're going to adjust. I don't know what Thompson's going to do differently. I don't know what Woodley's going to do differently. That's what makes this matchup so intriguing. They fought to a draw last time. I was fine with that decision. And I felt that this matchup is very much necessary. With that said, though, I cannot account for adjustments. It's not all of a sudden like Thompson's gonna, you know, throw 6 hit combinations all of a sudden, or Woodley's gonna freaking be Damian Maya on the ground all of a sudden, where he's like gonna take him down, take his back, and like in very smooth ways, or something like that. Like we can't predict that. From what we've seen, both of them show weaknesses to each other. I think Woodley can take Thompson down. I don't know if he can keep doing that round by round on a wrestling basis, especially with the way Thompson maintains distance. I think Thompson can keep Woodley away with his kicks and kind of score points from there. He gets in danger when he is in punching range. I feel like Woodley has more power than Thompson. These are things we can kind of see, you know, for the time being. So, with that said, though, ultimately, I'm going to go with the first pick I had when they first fought. I am going to go with Stephen Wonderboy Thompson to win this one, based on the diversity of his attack standing, his ability to maintain distance, and his accuracy of strikes. It really is a case of, and this is gonna sound lame on my point, on my part, but like I think there's some validity to this because if that like overhand right didn't land, I mean, Woodley, it was a lot of the same after the second round. Okay, well, Thompson would just kind of pick him apart a bit. Maybe Woodley would get a shot here and there, but for the most part, it was like they were relatively close rounds, but like it seemed like Thompson was just a little bit ahead in these rounds, and that's actually kind of how I see this fight going. So, uh, excuse me. I am going to go with Stephen Thompson to win this one by decision. Next fight after that, Tony Ferguson fights Khabib Nurmagomedov for the UFC interim lightweight title. Man, 5 rounds of these two, sign me up, man. Like, seriously, good fight here. Very interesting. Let's start with Khabib Nurmagomedov, actually. So he beat Michael Johnson his last time out. A lot of people want to criticize Khabib for getting wobbled by Michael Johnson last time out, and it's a fair point because Johnson is a solid striker. He hits hard, and Nurmagomedov, as great of a wrestler he is, he's an he's a sambo striker. I don't know how else to say it. Where he has that like surprisingly accurate, very looping punches. Has some power. He has some sting in his punches, but they're kind of just there to further his wrestling game. His wrestling game is insane. Um, I think he has every takedown ever invented. I mean, he does have a wide variety of takedowns, really. And if he gets you up against a fence, you're pretty much going for a ride. I mean, that's Khabib Nurmagomedov, and he can go get you a double leg, he can slam you, he can suplex you, he can trip you, he can throw you, and he chains it all together. When he is on top of you, he ground and pounds you, and just has a stay busy ground and pound until you just give up by TKO, or maybe you get back to your feet only to get taken down again. And that's really Khabib's game, and he does it at a very elite level. Uh, former champs like Rafael dos Anjos have succumbed to that game. So he's fighting Tony Ferguson, which is very interesting. Big for the weight class. Good striker in his own right, heavy-handed in his own right, and has a very good chin as well. Particularly powerful lead hook. Follows it with a right straight a lot of times. And his anti-wrestling, his counter-wrestling is very creative. He's a guy who'll get his leg caught, maybe off a kick or something, and then he'll somersault out of it. He's got there's a lot of Granby rolls. Um, Lots of scrambling on the ground. Favorite move, he has really strong front chokes. You shoot on him, if he can sprawl on you, you might be getting choked out. He can take the back as well, and is just very active on the ground. Uh, his wrestling's solid. You know, the guy started out, if I'm not mistaken, he has a wrestling background. It's just that there are times he just hasn't had to use it because his boxing's, you know, very high level. His power's good, and he can stand with pretty much, high level guys. He stood with Dos Anjos for 5 rounds. Uh, Finished off Barboza. Dude, the guy got head kicked by Barboza. Standing, you had to, or I favor Ferguson standing. Wrestling, I favor Nurmagomedov. It's just a matter of, can he take him down? If he can take him down, can he keep him down? There was a fight with Danny Castillo when he fought Tony Ferguson that Castillo was able to pretty much blanket him. He was able to take him down and even pass to dominant positions like mount and whatnot. So it's not outside of the realm of possibility that Ferguson, if you don't give him the opening, maybe maybe you can contain him. And it really is a case of, do you think Nurmagomedov can get takedowns consistently on Ferguson? I mean, that's really should be the basis of whether one thinks Nurmagomedov's going to win or not. Honestly, like, whereas this Ferguson can finish standing and can finish fights on the ground as well. So with that said, I'm gonna go with the Eagle being able to take Ferguson down consistently, land his ground and pound. Tony Ferguson has the more proven cardio, so that's also another thing that might work against Nurmagomedov, is that we don't know his cardio for 5 rounds. But otherwise, I can see Nurmagomedov taking him down, pounding him out, rinse and repeat. So I am going to go Khabib Nurmagomedov to win this by decision. Next fight after that, Rashad Evans fights Daniel Kelly. This is an interesting fight. For one, it's in middleweight, so Rashad Evans will make his first cut to 185. Two, he's fighting Dan Kelly, who is very much unheralded, but for those that know Dan Kelly and are aware of him, the dude is a prospect killer. The guy is tough as nails, and he has some of the ugliest fights imaginable. So, Dan Kelly, judo background, he can take you down and he will beat you up. Standing, his striking is, from a technical perspective, is pretty bad. Up close, he can, from the clinch range, he is very strong there and can land some good shots, short punches and whatnot. Rashad Evans, former UFC light heavyweight champion, good over and right, not a bad boxer at his prime, but the guy's getting older, has been riddled with injuries, and his chin seems to be getting worse and worse. His wrestling is still top notch. His takedown defense has always proven to be very good. And the reason why I want to bring that up is Kelly's run, ever since he lost to Alvey, he's been on a run. He got knocked out by Alvey, and he even beat guys, really good prospects like Antonio Carlos Jr. Among that run. One thing that has to be said is that a lot of times, in order for Daniel Kelly to win his fights, he has to be able to take fights to the ground. Against Kamosi, I believe that was the case as well, if I'm not mistaken. Now, the thing is, I think that Kelly has a good chance of winning here. I think the age-wise, they're actually very close in age, but Kelly has less fighting years under him, whereas Rashad Evans has a huge amount, like a lot of fights under his belt, and has been fighting for a while. So the thing is, I can see if Kelly is the underdog, I definitely see upset potential here, just because Rashad Evans looks older, isn't as quick as he used to be, and it's his first cut at 185. like I said with Dan Kelly, though, if he wants to fights that he wins, he generally wins if he can, take his opponent down and be on top. Can he do that to Rashad Evans at this point? I don't know. Standing, I still have to favor Evans here. And he's not going to be undersized, too. He might actually be. I don't know if he's going to be the bigger fighter here. I don't think he will. But he shouldn't be undersized. And size has never actually been an issue for him as far as like him getting taken down and whatnot either. So usually a lot of guys are just taller and able to like get better reach on him too. Jones being one of those guys and whatnot. Um, but nonetheless, I just don't see. I don't think Kelly has enough standing to be able to really finish Evans off. Could be wrong there. Could very well be wrong there because Evans' chin is not the greatest. But the thing with Kelly is I don't think he has the wrestling to keep Evans down. So with that said, I am going to go with Rashad Evans to win this one. I don't know if he'll get a decision. Kelly's pretty tough, but he can get hurt on the feet. He can also get outsped too. Kelly is not a particularly quick guy, and Evans, while slower, is still the better athlete. So, with that said, I'll go with Rashad Evans to win this one. Man, this one's tough to call. I'll just go by decision. Next fight after that, David Teymur fights Lando Vannata. So, little thing about David Teymur here. I like David Teymur a lot, actually. I think this guy is steadily improving, and the thing that sucks about David Teymur, I regret to say, I think he's done what, 2 or is it 3 fights now in the UFC? Yeah, I think it's 3 now. 2 or 3 fights in the UFC. Won them all by knockout or TKO. I have not picked his fights correctly. For whatever reason. I really wish he wasn't fighting Lando Vannata in that sense. Because, man, I like Lando Vannata. Man, he won his last fight by spinning heel kick. Against a pretty tough guy, too. And, jeez, forgot the guy's name now. I can totally remember his face, but I can't remember the name. Guy who trains at a TriStar. And that's the thing with Lando Vannata here. Very unorthodox striking style. Trains under Jackson Winklejohn. He can wrestle a bit, but he just has this really funky style that he'll throw different kicks and different strikes. Gave Tony Ferguson kind of a run for his money when he first fought in the UFC. And, has some power in his strikes. And is very loose with, has a very, I guess, loose fighting style. David Teymur is more of your typical Muay Thai, just kickboxing type fighter, and has a lot of power in his strikes. I've liked what I've seen from him. His takedown defense looks good. He actually, if I'm not mistaken, I think one of his fights he actually showed some offensive takedown ability as well. Accurate. My biggest complaint with Teymur was that he's not a combination striker. It's like big deal at this point because for one thing, it's not like he doesn't throw, and also when he does throw, it's accurate and he hits really hard too. He has really good kicks, really strong punches as well. He's more of a just solid technical fighter with good power, good accuracy, and good timing. He's fighting a guy like Lando, who's a little more like, oh hey, I guess I'll throw this spinning heel kick at this guy. I'll just get kind of funky. Like I said, it's more of a loose style that is kind of unorthodox. So this is why this fight's really interesting too, because I feel that Vannata is more unorthodox, or Teymur is a bit more of just an orthodox fighter, but very good and solid at what he does, and has finishing ability as well. Very hard fight for me to pick. Lando's a more popular guy, but that doesn't mean he doesn't leave himself open too. So that's and a guy like David Teymur, like I said, good timing, accurate striker, hits hard. That could be pretty troublesome for a guy like Lando Vannata, but I can't help but Vannata is going to be a little too hard to read. Um, isn't going to isn't going to go technique, technique for technique with like Teymur, and isn't going to play like a technical game or Teymur will a lot of times is the better technical fighter. So with that said, I'm going to Lando Vannata to win this one. Man, I have not called any finishes yet, but I haven't seen David Teymur finished. So I'm going to Lando Vannata up by decision. Like all the fights here, man, I am not confident with any of them. Next fight after that, Mark Hunt fights Alistair Overeem. So Alistair Overeem, he last fought for the title against Stipe Miocic and even managed to drop him. He went for I feel was a not so smart guillotine, I guess. Uh, and this is actually a rematch for when they fought in Japan, if I'm not mistaken. I remember that fight because Hunt was actually winning the stand-up until Overeem managed to get this really funky armbar on Hunt. Doubt that's going to happen again. Alistair Overeem also, like, for the most part, his style these days is in and out. He'll go in, throw a knee, punch, whatever, kick, get out. So he goes in, goes out, one strike at a time, and it's worked for him quite well actually. Still has power. Seems to have improved a bit on his cardio, and just has found a style of fighting that doesn't, because he sucked at boxing range. Alistair Overeem did, and that's where he got knocked out. He still has the mental issue though of like, oh, when he gets hit, he kind of just crumbles, and you can kind of see that against Stipe. He got hit hard like once, and he just kind of crumbled. Um, so it's a confidence thing with Alistair Overeem. He's fighting Mark Hunt, who I honestly don't think has had that problem. Hunt has He's very selective with the strikes, has a really strong lead left hook, good uppercut as well. If he wants to leg kick, he can. He doesn't choose to. And his takedown defense has greatly improved. Ability to get back to his feet when he's taken down is not bad either. And while his chin isn't as great as it used to be, it's still quite stout nonetheless. Last time we saw Mark Hunt was against Lesnar. Last time we saw, it was against Lesnar, where he got taken down and kind of just grinded on more so than anything else. Whereas Overeem just got knocked out by Stipe. So here's another X factor here too. And it goes to a mental thing. I don't know what this means for Alistair Overeem, in the sense of he just got knocked out, and while he's still a good fighter and he has come back before, I don't know where he is at this time after that knockout. That's my thing with Alistair Overeem right now. We saw him on a really bad losing streak at one point. And he managed to climb back up from there. Then, he got knocked out by Stipe, and it's like, okay, where is this guy mentally? Is he gonna be hit hard once, and he's mentally out to fight. It seems like a thing for him. And with Mark Hunt, I don't think that's a thing with him at all. Guy just seems like, a fighter, in that sense, where he'll definitely come back. Uh, has shown to be able to come back, after some pretty bad defeats. Um, the stylistic matchups is really interesting too, just because that Overeem goes in and out like he does. Uh, do I think Hunt's gonna manage to eventually find him? Yes, I do. I can see that happening. I don't know if Overeem is even willing to pull the trigger that much on Hunt. We shall see. So, with that said, I do think that Mark Hunt can hit Overeem hard, and once that happens, it's going to be like a knockout, or Overeem's going to just mentally collapse and get like KO'd or TKO'd from there. So, with that said, I am going to go with Mark Hunt to win this one by KO or TKO. Okay, on the FS1 prelims. Daniel Spitz fights Mark Godbeer. So I actually want some Daniel Spitz. Not a great striker. He trains out of Jiu-Jitsu. Decent in the clinch though. His knees, his technique doing knees don't look that great, but his overall clinch striking is probably one of his strongest assets. I actually saw him fight Cabbage. That's the fight I saw him. This was like 2 fights ago. And, he showed some pretty good takedown ability. Not great, but, he's not bad at that either. As a striker, though, striking at range, I didn't think, I wasn't particularly impressed with him. Mark Godbeer. So, the hand of Godbeer. I remember seeing him fight Czech Congo on Bellator, and then he got knocked out, or TKO'd, knees and elbows. He fought Lando, and then he got finished by, or not Lando, Ledet. Excuse me, Ledet. Why did I say Lando? Both have L's, I guess, in their last name, or in their names. Jeez. Okay. Well, anyways, sorry. Um, yeah, Mark Godbeer. Decent enough striker. Uh, has some power in his strikes, but particularly a nondescript heavyweight. Has some power in his strikes. He can strike relatively well. Relatively tough. Ground game is just kind of like most heavyweights. But there isn't anything really special with him. And the thing with Spitz is, when I saw him fight Cabbage, I can't say I was like greatly impressed with what I saw. But, he does have a ground game, pretty good in the clinch, not the greatest range striker, and that's probably where Godbeer can beat Spitz at. Both heavyweights, so at this point, I'd say that Godbeer has shown the more proven power, but, it's heavyweight. So, one punch can change the course of a fight. So, with that said, I am going to go Daniel Spitz to win this one. I'll even go by sub, because, you know, I can see him possibly getting Godbeer down and maybe working a sub. So, Daniel Spitz by submission. So I thought Luis Henrique fights Marcin Tybura. So, Luis Henrique. The thing with Luis Henrique is that he's kind of like big, tough, and can wrestle and grapple. That's kind of his thing. He got knocked out by Francis Ngannou. Won his next, is it 1 or 2 fights after that? If I'm not mistaken. And yeah, like I said, he can wrestle a bit. Um, his overall grappling isn't that bad. Striking is just kind of there. It's kind of sloppy, but he has some power. and he's fighting Marcin Tybura, who is what, a BJJ brown belt, really good top control game, offensive takedown, but he's pretty good. And his striking, as shown in his last fight when he knocked out Pesta, looks to be improving. So with that said, I think Tybura is just a little more technical. Um, he's also big and tough. So I am going to go with Marcin Tybura to win this one. Probably, I want to go by finish. What the hey, I'll go by sub. Marcin Tybura to win this one by submission. Next about that, Mirsad Bektic fights Darren Elkins. Darren Elkins' game is to grind and make his opponent's life hell for 15 minutes. And he does that. If he can get that game going, then that is how he will win. If he can get the takedown, he has non-stop ground and pound. Opponents have a hard time getting out from underneath, and they just get really frustrated and discouraged just losing to this guy, like suffocating them pretty much. He can also grind against the cage, and he has extremely awkward striking. His striking is just kind of there to set up his takedowns. His friend Mirsad Bektic, who is known as one of the top prospects of the featherweight division, hasn't fought in a while though. Trains out of ATT, whose game is also, he's really strong, and people actually compare him to GSP just in the sense of how athletic the guy is, and just how like solid and overall, has this like solid overall game. That I guess kind of looks like his. Like sometimes I'll see his takedowns and I kind of see what they're talking about with the GSP comparison. I think it's a little different than that though. For one thing with Bektic, um, he's shown to be a pretty powerful striker and looks to be steadily improving in the striking department. With his takedown game, he does have a pretty strong takedown game. Oh yeah, he fought Russell Doan in that last fight and just took him down and eventually finished him as well. And so it's a case of the prospect versus veteran, and Darren Elkins has always been that gatekeeper to the top 10. Can Bektic maybe even get his own takedowns on Elkins and defend the offense of Darren Elkins, who's always the type of guy that's going to keep coming after him? I'm going to say yes. Bektic's a really strong guy, steadily improving, should at this point have better stand-up than Elkins, and is a pretty strong wrestler in his own right. Darren Elkins is your ultimate grinder, makes life hell for his opponents, but I think Bektic, I'm hoping Bektic does not fall for that. And I always like to see prospects moving up. But this is a big step up for him, And whenever I see prospect versus veteran fight, whether it's Doohoo Choi, Cub Swanson, or some other fight, prospect, the hot up and coming prospect does not always win. But in this case, I am gonna go with Mirsad Bektic here. Stylistically, he beats him standing, and Bektic's he's a good wrestler in his own right. So yeah, I'm gonna go Mirsad Bektic to win by decision. Next right after that, Iuri Alcantara fights Luke Sanders. Tough one for me to call. I'm pretty high on Iuri Alcantara. The biggest problem with Iuri though are twofold. It's volume and takedown defense. That's it. Offensively, the guy's Muay Thai is really strong. He's strong kicks and punches, knockout power, has some real knockout power. His overall ground game is actually really good though. Triangles, arm bars. From his back, he actually does look to actively sweep you. The only problem with him is that his takedown defense is like terrible. It's like the guy doesn't dig for an underhook if he's up against a cage. But his overall ground game, it is very strong nonetheless. Um, but yeah, once you put Alcantara on his back, a lot of times he does get kept there by his own volition. He actually is a little too content to stay off his back. Luke Sanders, really good prospect in his own right. This is also kind of like that prospect veteran fight. One thing I like about Luke Sanders though is, man, this guy's just go. You know, from start to ball, this guy is just, he's throwing strikes, he's coming at his opponent. He's a good wrestler in his own right. Hits pretty hard. Um, and, you know, it's just relatively tough to deal with. Uh, I wouldn't say his technique is always the prettiest or anything like that, but I wouldn't say he's sloppy either. But he's just always in his opponent's face. Won his last fight against was it Maximo Blanca? Choked him out actually, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, so tough one for me to call. But if this fight goes to decision, I have to favor Sanders just because he's a guy that's always pushing forward and doing more. He is a guy that is generally going to win rounds. Iuri Alcantara, I feel, unless he has a real, like, obvious, like, he obviously wins a round or something like that. He's not a guy who generally wins rounds because he doesn't throw a lot. Uh, he's more of someone that I think is like, to win fights he has to generally finish. With that said, though, I gotta favor the guy that knows how to win rounds. You know, I'm gonna favor Luke Sanders to just keep attacking Alcantara, um, not giving him a lot of breathing room with both strikes and wrestling too. You know, Sanders is not a bad wrestler. So yeah, Luke Sanders by decision. Okay, on to the UFC Fight Pass prelims. Tyson Pedro fights Paul Craig. So Pedro won his last fight against Khalil Roundtree. If you actually look at his record, most of his wins are by first round rear naked choke. And he actually beat Khalil Roundtree after getting dropped by first round rear naked choke. Paul Craig, if you look at his record, has a more variety of submission victories, triangles, and his problem though is that he is one of those few guys that will pull guard. I think he's 6'3" or 6'4". He has some long legs. He's really good with the triangle. Won his last fight by what, an armbar if I'm not mistaken, against Frank Waston. Yeah, against Frankenstein De Silva. Um, But one thing I liked about Paul Craig in his last fight, though, is I felt that he had some pretty improved stand up, and he has like twice the amount of fights that Tyson Pedro has. I think overall, well, Pedro has a good win over Khalil Roundtree. I think overall, Paul Craig has the better overall. He's beaten the stronger level competition. He's like Carl Moore, for example. You might not know that name. He's actually pretty solid. You know, the guy's like a 7-1. I'd still call him a prospect at this point. You know, he's pretty good. You know, among other guys that Paul Craig has beaten. You know, beating Luis Henrique de Silva, Frankenstein. Um, you know, that's a solid enough win as well. So, and one thing is, if you got two guys who most of their wins has come on the ground. So unless like Tyson Pedro is going to take Paul Craig's back, Paul Craig's pretty crafty on the ground. Like, you know, it's I'd be surprised if I'll be very interested actually just to see what the ground game looks like. And like I said, I saw a good amount of improvement standing from Paul Craig here. So, you know, I'm going to go Paul Craig to win this one. I'll go by decision. Tough to call, though. Next fight is that Cynthia Calvillo fights Amanda Bobby Cooper. So, I actually don't want some Calvillo fight, some of her fights. ones that I saw, it said that she trained at a Team Alpha Male. I'll say this right now. As far as experience goes, against a certain level of competition, Cooper has fought the better level of competition. Whereas Calvillo, I think, is the better athlete. And the fights I've seen her, striking looked all right. It didn't look bad. It just was like, yeah, I mean, it wasn't great or anything like that, but it wasn't like some huge liability. One thing I liked about her was a wrestling game. Her ability to take opponents down and work some top game as well. She looked pretty good there. Amanda Bobby Cooper has some pretty solid boxing, and her ground game. I mean, Tatiana Suarez managed to take her down and choke her out, and then Aspen Ladd managed to like mount her and just beat her up as well. I don't, but Amanda Bobby Cooper is also just big for his weight class. She's fought at like 125 and probably should be fighting at 125. I can't really say the same for Calvillo though. So Cooper has more experience and isn't having to fight first fight in the UFC. But I just don't know if she can handle the wrestling of Calvillo. Uh, if she can, she probably wins the fight. If not, I'll go with. I think Calvillo would win. So with that said, I think that Calvillo can take Cooper down. And like I said, her stand-up wasn't like terrible or anything like that. Um, and she just looks like the better athlete. So with that said, I'll go with Cynthia Calvillo to win this one by decision. And finally, Albert Morales fights Andre Soukhamthath. I saw some Andre Soukhamthath fights. I actually saw one fight where he was actually in a good amount of danger, where he got like taken down and got like his back taken. I think this fight might actually remain standing. I wasn't impressed with Soukhamthath's defense though. I thought his defense overall wasn't that great, but his offense looked quite strong. Albert Morales is a guy that like kind of just pushes forward and throws heat. His first fight in the UFC, I thought he should have actually won. He fought that one dude that won Ultimate Fighter Latin America. I forgot his name now. And then he lost to like Tomas Almeida, but it's like Tomas Almeida. He's just like more experienced, and at this point, just a better, better fighter. I think both this fight should remain standing though. I liked what I saw from Soukhamthath. I think he's very dangerous standing and is very dangerous offense as well. But so does Morales, and Morales is pretty game too, and has more experience in the octagon. So tough one for me to call too, honestly. But I am gonna go Albert Morales to win this one. I'll go by decision, but yeah, I'm saying a lot of decisions, but I can see finishes in a lot of these fights. So to recap, I have Stephen Thompson beating Tyron Woodley by decision, Habib Nurmagomedov over Tony Ferguson by decision, Rashad Evans over Daniel Kelly by decision, Lando Vannata over David Teymur by decision, and Mark Hunt over Alistair Overeem by KO or TKO. On the FS1 prelims, I have Daniel Spitz over Mark Godbeer by submission. Right? Yeah, I think so. Marcin Tybura over Luis Henrique by submission. Mirsad Bektic over Darren Elkins by decision. And Luke Sanders beating Iuri Alcantara by decision. On the prelims, I have Paul Craig beating Tyson Pedro. I said decision, if I'm not mistaken. Possible sub, possibly from either one of these guys. Then I have Cynthia Calvillo over Amanda Cooper by decision, and Albert Morales over Andre Soukhamthath by decision. So that's pretty much it for my predictions for UFC 209 Woodley versus Thompson 2. If you have any comments, just leave them below. And please check out my author's website at www.chrismoldong.com. Also check out my storytelling podcast, Chris's Storytelling Corner as well. So that's pretty much it for MMA for you. Thank you guys very much.